All right, we have to go around the horn really quick and try to guess what Devon ordered for dinner.
Ooh, okay.
Devon, you just give us yes or no answers.
I don't know what does Devon like to eat.
Everything.
He likes a Chicago-style pizza.
This is what we're going to find out.
Okay, we know that. We know. Did you order a Chicago-style pizza from Lou Malnati's delivered from Illinois?
Unfortunately, I did not. The delivery charge on that one was somewhere in the $500 range, so I passed.
It's on one of those little like Amazon drones.
Surge pricing.
Okay, I'm gonna guess something simple. I'm just gonna guess like a burger or perhaps a sandwich of some kind.
Nope.
How dare you guess sandwiches of some kind? That blankets so much of the range.
Well, it also makes it easier for you guys, you know?
That's true.
Not to get into the is X a sandwich. I'm strictly saying something between either a bun or pieces of bread.
I will give you a hint that what I ordered could be construed as a sandwich.
Tacos.
Stan, yes, that's correct.
Nailed it.
Oh, that was secretly my first guess,
easy.
but I thought it seemed a little off.
All right, Devon.
As soon as you said sandwich, there's only one sandwich. It's the taco.
What's in the tacos?
But here's the great thing about tacos now is we have at least another 2 minutes of content because everybody can share their favorite taco. Devon, how do you roll for a taco? Like, where are you at? Are you like a gringo taco or what is your thing?
What's the difference? I just get regular ones, you know? I don't really like...
So you get ground beef,
You get
lettuce, cheese,
shredded cheese,
that kind of thing?
Yeah. The ones that I got, they're tacos de birria. Birria is like the stew, you know what I mean?
yeah.
And you dip it in
yeah. Birria's
that stuff is good.
See,
I wish I could eat that.
the gringo taco is like the...
Taco Bell.
Yeah, it's like Taco Bell. It's like what your mom made in the 90s.
Or your dad.
Okay.
Should I not say that word? Is that a problem?
What, moms?
Dads?
Yeah, moms.
Gringo?
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Maybe it's bad.
Well, I
think
just
gringo
don't.
tacos
I don't
okay.
even think of Taco Bell as gringo tacos. Like I think about like those like really expensive like $13 brunch tacos.
Sure.
That's Chicago gringo taco.
Yeah,
gringo
that's,
taco.
that's Logan Square.
Deep dish taco.
You know
Deep
what I
dish tacos. All right, Stan, what kind of taco do you roll non-Taco Bell edition? Like if you're at Big Star, what kind of taco are you ordering?
I wish I could share my screen because I'm looking at the Big Star menu right now to remember what it was called. But
And remember when you could do fun things before you had children?
the pescado, they're the fish taco,
Yeah.
beer battered tilapia with chipotle mayo, cabbage, red onion, lime, and cilantro.
Yeah.
Yum.
Stunning.
Sounds good.
I'm a pastor. I like the little bit of
man.
pineapple on the pork tenderloin.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Shane, you have the mushrooms.
I haven't eaten non-fish meat in like over 4.5 years now. So I usually get the camarones, the shrimps. I get the fried shrimps.
I always think that the word camarones makes shrimp sound so little and cute. Like they'd be in Bloomburrow,
Camarones.
for example.
The also at the expensive taco joint near me, they have like a fried cheese taco.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's really good.
I can't wait for us to finish our Bloomburrow spoiler and talk about haughty camarones, the uncommon that I'm really excited about being in prowess.
Gives all shrimp +1/+1.
Yeah.
Every time a shrimp, a cod, or a red snapper attack, discard, then draw 2 cards.
Yeah. Gift of camarones.
Hello and welcome to episode 285 of The Dive Down, a Magic the Gathering podcast focused on the latest decks, trends, strategies, spoilers, and rhinos for the casual spike.
God, no, not again.
And shrimps.
I got one word for you, Dave. Awooga.
Oh, we're back.
My name is Stanislav here in Chicago, and with me on the line from Denver, Colorado, it's the one and only Shane Beeps.
Hello, Stanislav.
Hi, Shane.
I like your Elefante shirt.
Thanks. It says harmonica done on it. It was
Oh, yeah.
Like
sure
a-
does.
like a Chicago. I don't think he does this anymore, but there's like this promoter in Chicago who had like an entertainment company called Harmonica Done.
Okay.
When I was on my honeymoon in Utah, I was hiking in some national park and a couple of strangers stopped me and were like, "Hey, is that a Harmonica Dunn shirt? Do you know Donnie?" And I was like, "I know Donnie. How do you know Donnie?"
I loved Harmonica Dunn's work in Girls.
Also with us, the Godfather, Dave Harbarger.
Wow, you introduced me second instead of third this time. Are we saving the meal delivery for the finale of the intro?
Yeah. Trying to save, give basically Devon as much time as he can to eat on mic.
Yeah. Sounds great.
And last but not least, we have Doomwake, a.k.a. Devon O'Donnell. What does your family call you? Doom?
No, they call me by my first name, which is Doom.
Doom?
Wakey, wakey.
Doom, get down here. Dinner's on the table.
Your camarones are ready.
Not a big shrimp guy.
We got a big episode today, so let's talk first about our main sponsor, Heavy Play, the card gaming accessory brand that's going to improve your gameplay and your game day with their playmats, deck boxes, and card sleeves, which all feature enhanced ergonomics for mobility and protection. Their unique Equip Mag system allows you to magnetically attach dice bundles, decks, playmats. You can carry it in one hand. I was playing Commander with some friends this weekend, and one of my friends who listens to the show asked me very candidly, "Stan, do you really like Heavy Play stuff?" And I gave him a very, very emphatic yes, I truly, genuinely do.
What, you thought we've been lying all this time?
You know, I'm not above shilling, but we don't have to shill. We don't have to shill. We love the stuff.
Applebee's, get at us.
Absolutely.
Tide detergent. P&G.
If you want to try it yourself, head on over to heavyplay.com and use promo code TheDiveDown2024 to get 10% off your first order of Heavy Play accessories. I mentioned we had a big show today, so let's talk about what we are talking about on this week's episode. The Rhino Boys return. Auga! As news of a certain crashing Footfalls gives us hope again.
It only took one $60 mythic to make it happen.
Sometimes that's all it takes. And then we're going to wrap up our Bloomburrow spoiler palooza, revealing once and for all which of us is a squirrel and who is an opossum. Shane's a frog. Spoiler alert.
Who's a shrimp?
I thought I was a badger.
You know, I mean, I don't know how anyone other than me could be a shrimp.
You're also badger-esque.
I'm a badger shrimp. I'm 6 inches shorter than all of you. At least.
Can I be a frog?
Sure.
Yeah, man. You can be whatever you want.
Bloomburrow, tag yourself.
All right, with that out of the way, let's housekeep. We got 2 new patrons, Paul and Lawrence F. Thank you both for joining the Dive Down Nation. Also, we got a new review. Shane, I'm sorry, I keep blowing up your spot. I keep telling the listeners that the positivity makes you cry.
Am I open weeping?
Yeah, and Pixel Life left a review that is titled, "Shane, Please Cry."
I'd like to mention that Pixel Life also says here, also, I am that guy that occasionally posts meow on the Spotify. Also, great show. I have to say, it's not occasionally. It's a lot, Pixel Life. And I don't remember what your name is on Spotify, but it's definitely enough that I have gone, I'm just deleting those. They're not going live. They haven't in 6 months. Like, I see them and I go, oh, meow is back. And I kind of wondered if it was spam, and I just delete it. So sorry.
Okay. Well, Pixel Life, you can either keep trying or change your approach to getting on the Spotify comments.
I mean, I do appreciate the very nice review, though. Thank you so much, Pixel Life. And here's what I have to say about that. Meow.
Meow.
One of these days, you're going to leave the comment there, or you're just going to miss it, you know? That's going to be their magnum opus.
I can't moderate everything. Literally, they sent in one time that was like enough meows for the meow mix. So it was like 15 meows in a comment. I was like, okay. But
one meow is good enough for the meow mix, really. Right. You just repeat it.
Yeah. But if you'd like to support us the same way the meow person at Pixel Life does, go to patreon.com/thedivedown, where as little as $1 a week will let you join our Discord, where you can talk about many different things. There's been a lot of conversation on the Discord lately about how large Magic vendors might sort their cards, like speculating about processes. Basically anything that you want to nerd out about, not just Magic, you can find somebody who is wanting to talk with you about their nerdy golf game or more. At
building emulators.
Sure. I've been getting into Raspberry Pi lately. You see, you could come and talk to me there about that. If you want to support us without going through Patreon and having to hear all that nonsense, you can go to divedown.com/the store and buy a hat, buy a shirt, buy something like that. The Rhino shirts are still there, and if the Rhinos are back, guess what? Some things just never go out of style. Mana Traders, if you would like to support us while doing renting of Magic cards for Magic Online, you can check out manatraders.com and use current code THEDIVEDOWN, all one word, all caps, _8LU through the middle of August to get 10% off of your first 2 months of rental cards. And those are all the ways that you can possibly support us.
All right. Great housekeeping, guys. Really, one for the record books. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about spoilers. So before we get into all that, should we talk about Crashing Footfalls?
I'm fine with starting there and going to spoilers for sure. Can we just talk about what we've been playing lately? I'll let you go as much as you want first on Crashing Footfalls. I have a couple of notes for other things that we could discuss, but let's hear it. You're giddy with excitement. You've barely been able to sit still on camera. People can't hear you shucking and jiving, but I can see you bouncing back and forth.
Well, that's why we wear the headset microphones.
True.
Because of Stanislav's dynamic podcast recording.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah. Like an 8-year-old with a new Minecraft mod, share with me what's on your mind.
Well, I feel like one day last week, on Thursday or Friday maybe, Devon and I saw the same couple of tweets from a certain someone who had done well in modern challenges and leagues with Crashing Footfall.deck.
Maybe.
And I that's all it really takes, I guess. And all it is was someone put Flage in the Crashing Footfalls deck, which is something I feel like Devon, you and I were like talking about a couple weeks ago of like, what are we waiting for? Let's just put Flage in the deck and see what happens. And it turns out that was all it took.
Yeah, I will say the man is a little suspicious. After playing 3 leagues in the challenge with it, it can use some work. We'll say that. That
was the first thing. I mean, let's just cut to the chase. Let's get into the weeds on this deck already. I thought the mana looked weird. Like casting white, red seems pretty tough. But maybe you don't have to at all.
Another problem that I found was that the way that the mana base currently is, you can't Lorien for a green source because there's no breeding pool and there's no green triome. So that was like kind of awkward.
All right, what are we talking about though exactly, my friends?
Read us a list.
I mean, the list is probably what you would have expected from pre-violent, or I guess post-violent outburst. It's 4 Ardent Plea, 4 Charless Agent. You still have your Fire Ices, your Lorien revealed. You are playing Leyline Binding, but you're not playing Sign of Draco. You are playing Force of Negations, Dead Gone, a couple Mystical Dispute, which I'm guessing is just like squarely looking at Nadu, a couple of Dismembers to deal with some bigger creatures, and then 3 Flage. Because we need 3 Flage and 1 Arena of Glory, because you need something from the new set to stay powerful in Modern.
Yeah, we can talk about Arena more, but that combo right there, Flage plus Arena of Glory, absurdly better than I thought it was going to be. Did not realize, I think, during the spoiler, that it gives things that you cast out of the graveyard with an alternate casting cost, such as Escape, Haste, and there's more to that later. But yeah, what card from the classic build is Flage replacing here? That's the thing. Like, I'm trying to figure out like what piece of interaction used to be in this space that isn't anymore. You said Scion. There might have been something else before that too. Like, there's no. I mean, we're going a long way back to say like Brazen Borrower or something like that. Like that kind of thing is not here anymore. You just have Flage. Is there something else
Honestly,
that was a creature?
I think what mostly got cut was just the lane line of the Guild Pack plus Scion. That's 8 cuts. And then they just added 3 Flage and some more interaction, right? Because there's like 2 Dismember, 2 Dispute, 3 Dead Gone. That's a lot more interaction than previous builds have had. So I think it's like a combination of both.
Yeah. It's also not playing the Stifle Merfolk, Flame of Anor combo, which was
or even
also a
just the
thing.
Stifle Merfolk, right? Weren't we just playing Tishana's Tidebinder solo for a while without even Flame?
Sort of. Like, I think you always had at least the 1 flame.
Okay.
But Like I almost think that Flage is replacing Tidebinder here as a disruptive interactive threat.
Yeah, that's the card I was looking for that was hot for a minute and now is just not here anymore. Tidebinder fits the bill.
Now, Devon, you took it to the next level. You actually took this deck through a challenge. I just played a league with it. I'd love to maybe wax poetic for a minute and just kind of like share the mental anguish I go through every time I try to register rhinos when I shouldn't be. Especially right now as I question like whether this deck is actually a suitable choice in Modern Horizons 3, considering it like at this moment it got very few tools and it's still like, in my opinion, recovering from the violent outburst ban. And like I kind of think like that's the big question. Like, is it even worth trying to play this deck and trying to cascade without violent outburst? Especially if you're not going to try to do something as broken as Leyline Scion, which is like little splinter twin as a treat.
Okay, I have a mild question at this point. Like at this point in how Modern Horizons 3 impacted Modern is going, is like Leyline of the Guild Pack plus Scion of Draco even that good? And that kind of like that gets to like some later conversations I have about like sort of this deck in general. Like, you know, if we had fully powered rhinos, would it even be good right now? But let's wait for a second on that one.
Yeah, I don't think that it's necessarily that, like, the combination of Leyline plus Scion is still very good. I think the biggest issue for me is the presence of Boros and the fact that a lot of Boros decks are on forced static prison. It just makes Leyline a lot more unreliable than it used to be, where, you know, you used to be able to, like, just put a Leyline into play and nobody could kill it, but now the best or the most played deck just has 4 effectively Vindicates against you. Sure, they can't kill the Scion, but then it makes you have to work harder for your mana, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I mean, they can kill the Scion too, for what it's worth. I mean, they can, depending on how it goes, you know, you can Galvanic discharge it, which you didn't have as easy access to because Unholy Heat was a little bit harder to do in decks like this perhaps earlier. And so there are ways you can static prison the Scion too, right? Am I thinking about the wrong thing? Yeah.
Not with the Leyline in play.
Yeah.
Oh, not with the Leyline in play. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think that in the case of rhinos, there are other cards in MH3 that I would have expected to make rhinos a questionable choice. Like Wrath of the Skies being able to respond for 2 mana and clear your board, I think is really powerful as a way to just like undo your tokens in a way that Modern couldn't really do in the past because Supreme Verdict wasn't really seeing a ton of play and control decks weren't as popular at the time. And once upon a time, I thought Dave made the very astute observation that like one reason why Rhinos was good for as long as it was just because like you can't just Wrath them away because no one's really playing Wraths. And now we have one of the best Wraths ever in Wrath of the Skies.
Yeah, and not only that, but Jeskai, the deck that's playing it the most, there are other decks that are playing it, has 6 Wraths in the 75. You know, there's generally 3 Wrath of the Skies and 1 Supreme Verdict main, and then 1 of each of those in the sideboard. So you have a lot of Wraths. Also,
I think the lack of violent outburst makes the One Ring a bigger problem. You have to sorcery speed into your rhinos. If you don't have a Force of Negation for backup and someone plays the One Ring against you, that's a significant tempo loss. And I think the One Ring is seeing more play than ever, possibly. And like for me, the big question is like, with all these new problems, is Flage enough to just bridge that gap?
Yeah, I think that is something that I definitely learned when I was playing some of the games against the ring decks, and I would definitely consider adding some number of, I don't know if it wants to be Bone Crusher Giant, could be Questing Beast, and then the other option is one that chat suggested to me, which is Insult to Injury. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this one, but it's an Aftermath card from Amonkhet. The second half doesn't matter, but it's 2 in a red. Damage can't be prevented this turn, and it doubles all damage that would be dealt. So if you have Shardless into Footfalls and they ring, even if they're at 20, you just go cast this and deal them 20.
Yeah. I like that as a piece of tech. That's a card that I had around for Pioneer. I think at one point in time there was a deck that was playing Insult Injury in Pioneer, I believe. But yeah, it's interesting. So I guess, Stan's asked the question, this is keeping up. Devon, you went 5-2 in a challenge with it, and you've played some leagues. Like, is the plan of this deck keeping up in a way that is reasonable?
That's a good question. So I kind of think that now I will say, and I don't even know how this is possible. I've played now, I think 23 matches with this deck or 22, 3 leagues in the 7 rounds in the challenge. Out of 22 matches, not a single Nadu deck. So I cannot really say what the Nadu matchup is like because I have no idea. But as far as
Shadow Band.
Yeah, get it out of here. As far as the Boros matchup is concerned, I actually have been fine against them in the games they don't have Blood Moon. As we talked about, the mana base is a little sketchy, maybe needs some work, and Blood Moon is really good against you. As far as the kind of like Murktide type decks, those have felt close, but I think I've been winning more than I've been losing. And another thing about Rhinos is that it's like historically just very good against more combo focused decks because it's playing all of that free interaction, subtlety, force negation alongside that really fast clock. And with Modern, the way that it is with MH3 being more, faster and more combo focused, I think that it's actually not in that bad of a spot right now.
Yeah, I'm curious. I was curious especially about the Boros matchup because I just feel like Boros can create board stalls and you don't have like an amazing amount of removal, especially like sort of cost-effective removal in Rhinos. So I'm sort of curious like how Rhinos is getting through as like Boros is just sort of clogging up the board and then going tall and then going over you.
Can I make a couple of observations based on playing Boros some and looking at the removal suite that is in here? Here's some hypotheses that I have. Dead, Gone, and Fire and Ice are actually very good against Boros, I would say, because many of your cards have either 2 or 1 toughness, including Ocelot Pride. If you have Ragavan, you can kill Guide of Souls, like they're Raptor, like you can 2-for-1 people with fire in a way that maybe wasn't available previously, even against something like Prowess or other aggro creature decks. There's a lot of 1 toughness creatures in Boros. That's worth noting. Then I would say Dead is fine, decent, right? It's okay. It's not amazing. But you also do have Leyline Binding to get stuff out of the way, including opposing Flages. And so I actually think that there's also actually even 2 Dismember in this deck to be able to get rid of things that get giant. So there's a lot of creature kill in this deck, especially for a Rhinos deck, I think.
Yeah, I think, and even like Gone isn't the worst thing in the world because like you can bounce like something that's grown into some huge flying monstrosity if they're trying to finish the game with it. Surprise them, surprise blocker, get some trample damage in. So, I can see it. I think there's more to here than I originally realized when I was looking at the deck list.
Yeah. I mean, we're down on subtlety a little bit. Like 2 subtlety is a little less, right? Like I've been playing 4 in Jeskai Control along with 4 force negation. And so it's a little less than maybe what Rhinos used to have. I think there used to be 3 subtleties in those decks sometimes, but you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Here's the thing that I actually feel like this deck is showing us the most. And you guys tell me what you think about this. But my experience with Modern over the past couple of weeks, Nadu aside and stuff like that aside, has been it's kind of Flage's world, especially when it comes to a certain vein of decks that a vein of proactive decks that people really enjoy playing, right? So Boros Energy is like Flage aggro. Jeskai Control is basically Flage control, really, is my opinion after playing that deck for a little bit. And I think what we're looking at here is Flage tempo or Flage mid-range, maybe, you know what I mean? Where it's kind of like, okay, now we have this other deck that has another powerful, like combo-driven kind of value-y thing, because that's what Rhinos does. It outvalues you by putting out threats fast, and they're big, and you can't get rid of them without spending all your cards, and then Flage is in there to bolster that plan. So I feel like there's this whole axis in Modern right now that is just Flage decks are good. Which one do you want to be on at a given time in a given matchup?
But, okay, so Flage is good, right? So it's objectively a good card.
Mm-hmm.
How and you've played Flage, Stan, and Devon, I believe, in like the Boros energy decks.
Yep.
And perhaps the Jeskai control decks.
I have too. I've played Flage in Boros energy. I've gotten a 4-1.
Oh, wow. Okay, Dave. I'm sorry I left you out here. How do you? But you didn't play Rhinos with Flage. So my comparison was, or my question was, how's the comparison? Does it play like it does in those decks? Is it doing the same things? Is it just sort of like this costs 3 mana and it's a good card, so why don't we play it type thing?
Yes. My favorite category of question is, Shane's, how do you cast this card?
How do you use this card?
How do you play this good card?
Well, Shane, you simply just tap 3 mana and you put it on the stack.
I think once upon a time, I used to lament that Teamer Rhinos did not have Uro, because I felt like it wanted something in that 3-drop spot that it never really found, until maybe Tishana's Tidebinder, actually, that was a suitable plan B to your very disruptible Rhino plan that you don't have to cascade into, that can also like maybe generate some kind of value along the way. Like Uro was the best at that for a long time. I'm not speaking of Oko, but Tishana's Tidebinder kind of like did that to a certain extent by being a stifle threat that you could flash in. It synergized well with Wizards. Anor, Flame of Anor. And now Flage is kind of just like the best version of Uro that we have now, that it does that exact thing. Like, it is interaction. It can even help stabilize you a little bit with its life gain. You are fetching a ton. I think both of our decks had 10 fetches. And you will frequently have to fetch Shock if you want to like turn 1 dead and cascade on 3. And you are filling up your graveyard very frequently. You're playing a lot of cheap interaction. Like, being able to escape something out of the yard is not a hard proposition. So I think Flage kind of is good on the front and the back here. But similar to Boros, in my opinion, you can wait a while to escape Flage, because generally speaking, you have more ways to cascade. Your Rhino plan is still plan A. And then when all of that fails, or you just need something to do after you've cascaded, then you can Flage to like clear a blocker, gain some more life, and present an additional threat.
Or you can also present Splinter Twin, basically, which is Arena of Glory plus Flage, right? Which is kind of like, you're not necessarily building that. There's only one arena in the deck, and all of the decks seem to only have one. I've seen a couple of Boros decks that have 2 arenas, but that's about the most I've seen. So you can also put this threat that's like, okay, if you spend all your mana on your turn and leave me open when I have Arena of Glory in play and kill all my guys, I'm just going to Flage haste you and do 12 damage to you, and or do 6 to you and kill 2 of your cards. Like, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, it does sound good. The thing that, like, when I look at Flage, right, it's sort of, to me, when I look at it in Rhinos, it looks like I'm shoving perhaps one of the best creatures in MH3 into this deck because I can. Because so much of Rhinos has been about the cheating the cost of other things, right? Or like being able to play a decent card that doesn't actually cost 3, even though, because dead costs 1 and stuff like that, right? So the only card I can really think of that you were casting like sort of for rate was Tidebinder, but that wasn't really something that stuck, I think, fully in this deck. And so Flage to me looks kind of like the outlier, where it's like, I'm not cheating, I'm just playing a good card.
Yeah, and one other thing, too, you mentioned that the cheating on the mana cost. One thing that a lot of people don't realize that Rhinos is actually very, very good at is utilizing the graveyard as a resource, because just generally speaking, over the course of the game, like whenever you cast Footfalls, that's a spell going to the graveyard. You have Dismembers, Dead Gones, Fire Aces, a bunch of fetch lands. So, and that void was filled for a long time with Murktide Region. So now that, we found a more powerful way to utilize the graveyard, Flage makes a lot of sense, and it's also really good at fighting through counterspells. I played a match against Blue-Red Murktide where I cast that thing 3 times from the graveyard. Like, the games go long, and you have enough cards, have enough resources to do that.
I also played a match against Murktide where we were both down to like 1 or 2 cards in hand, and sometimes like we would rebuild because we would just both draw a ton of interaction, and we just played draw go against one another. And Flage is always the breaker in that situation.
Flage is really good. Flage is probably my favorite card in Modern Horizons 3. Honestly, it's very, very good.
Yeah, it's really good. And playing this deck kind of sent me into a negative and scary spiral. And it made me think, like, if Flage is so good that it can bring back Rhinos, we're like getting dangerously close to this territory of like every deck should just be playing Flage because it's so powerful, and they're gonna take it away from us. And I know this is extreme, but I just got so scared and I made myself sad, and I hope that's not the case, but I feel like they just don't know how to print good Titans with escape ability that aren't broken.
Kroxa was fine.
Yeah, Kroxa was fine.
Kroxa did nothing wrong.
Fine enough to earn a spot in my trade binder now.
I've actually been thinking about this the other day. We're going off topic a little bit. What do you think about Kroxa plus Arena?
Oh, yeah. I love it.
I know Dave.
Where can I play that?
Anyways.
Yeah,
Mardu
I love
Titans.
it. I'll try it.
Oh.
I'll try anything.
Once.
Sure, once. So you guys are still into this deck? You're going to keep playing it, Stan?
I don't think I'm going to keep playing it until it proves itself with more consistency and a more reliable list. I think the list is ill-defined. Devon, you make a really great point. Like, the mana base is sketchy. I think that's going to need like a lot of trial and error. And I also think playing my league, it made me feel like I did when Fury was banned, but before Tidebinder was printed, or maybe Fury was around and Tidebinder hadn't been printed yet. But there was this like one period of Rhino history where we just didn't know how to build it, and it was not like a great choice, and it just had to go in 30 different directions, and it had powerful cards, but it wasn't like cohesive enough. And that's kind of where I feel it is now. Like, maybe part of that has to do with like all the different axes and pillars of the format as we see it today. Maybe that is just like a little bit too hard for our current interaction suite to manage. Or maybe we just don't know the right numbers and levers, because like 2 Mystical Dispute, I think is like worse than just having 2 more Subtlety. You know what I mean?
It's so random.
But at the end of the day, like, I actually still think Boros is a better Flage deck, and Boros is probably just like a better deck in the meta right now. Like, it is very linear and aggressive, and it isn't vulnerable to like the same flexible disruption that like Chalice of the Void is against Cascade, if you know what I mean, where like a lot of decks can just like run a Chalice or an EE or something that just, or Dranith, just that like kind of shuts off what Cascade is doing. And that's harder to do with like a low to the ground aggro deck that Boros is. And the fact that they both have Flage makes me think that like I'd rather play the more resilient, stronger, faster, aggressive Flage deck if I had to.
So, Jeskai?
How dare.
I think what it comes down to for me is the fact that you get to play like this aggressive Force of Negation deck, because I think Force of Negation is in a really good spot right now with how many rings are being played. Like you mentioned, Jeskai, Tron. There's so many ring decks. The mono black deck, and Force of Negation plus Pressure is such a good recipe to beat all of these combo decks. But it's going to be tough for me because we're kind of in limbo right now. We're all just waiting to see what the metagame is going to look like when the inevitable happens. So it's tough to say like how I'm going to feel a month from now after Nadu's gone, but you know, we'll have to see.
I'm not sure that making 2 Rhinos with 1 card is actually that good right now because of the texture of the format. To be more specific, like, you used to be able to make 2 Rhinos, and if they were picked off with a couple of fatal pushes, you were up in that exchange and pretty happy with the trade, right? Nowadays, you have like the Necro decks drawing their whole library, so they can point removal at you, and they're not going down on cards. You have the Jeskai decks that can like flame for 5 and draw 2 cards because of Tameo or Wrath of the Skies you. That I don't think that like the Cascade plan by itself is like packing as much heat as it once did. And I think like having the right interaction and really the right mix of interaction is just like super critical.
Sweet. Deck looks neat. I'll give it a shot. Might as well.
You have to at this point.
Get to play with some Flage. I have not cast a Flage yet.
I do think you're kind of missing out. Yeah.
Flage with the boys.
Are we the Flage boys now?
It's getting close. I think that card is super awesome. Like I said, I've had fun with it in Jeskai Control, which is a deck that I've been playing here and there, and I played in that tournament with Stan last weekend, but I continued to play online some. I did want to ask you all about a slightly different topic really quickly, really off the cuff. Have you all looked at the price of Surveil lands from Murders at Karlov Manor?
No, but I'm going to check right now.
Retail from Card Kingdom is approaching $20 per card, depending on which land it is.
I just bought a borderless Lush Portico for $8 from CK.
Them or from somewhere else?
From CK, because I have a ton of credit with them.
Okay,
I see Elegant Parlor getting up there, but I don't think the other ones are quite as high.
Borderless Elegant Parlor, $22.99. The regular one's $18.99.
Yeah, they're all like $8.50, $9 though. You know?
Thundering Falls, $12.99. Undercity, I believe Undercity Sewers, or what's it called? Undercity Reaches. Now,
I'm looking at a price graph on TCG Player, and it looks like right until about June 16th, they were kind of flat. And then right after June 16th, they spiked a little bit. And then July 1st to July 7th, they went up from $7 to $17. So it was recent, very recent.
Yeah. I just want to say, are you all on board with the idea now? Because for a long time, it was like only Living End and Rhinos are going to want those cards. It just feels awesome to play something, not have a 1-drop, and then fetch a Surveil land going into your second turn, bin something in any deck. I don't care it's every deck now, right?
Even Prowess.
Yes, Prowess has Commercial District in it. Like, do you guys agree? Are you surprised? Are we surprised that some of them are more expensive than fetch lands now?
It's a little weird to see the price disparity between them, because you would think that, I mean, obviously some are going to be more played than others, but, you know, it's not like the red-white one is being played as a 4 of, you know?
Yep. Yeah. Borderless Undercity Sewers on Card Kingdom is $27.99. It's $19 for a regular
that's
one.
Surprising. Does it seem like legacy play as well or something?
I think it's
it's in
play.
Reanimator. It's in Reanimator.
Yep. The legacy decks play 1 or 2.
Yeah. But at any rate, everybody's playing these cards. I just thought it was really cool to see that, because I think all of us had kind of said, we don't know why you wouldn't play these in every deck in a fetch land format, and now we're there. It took a while, but now we're there. Yes, good job.
Nice hedge maze, Stanislav.
Nice hedge maze.
Is that why you stole one from me, Dave? Because they're just so good and you're trying to save $18?
Yeah, this is one of the cheapest ones, actually. Thundering Falls is amazingly one of the cheapest ones at this point. Okay, that was one random topic I had. The other thing is that I tried Hollow One with Detectives Phoenix, and I don't have a lot to say about it, but it was fun. I did try it. I got totally baited. The list is by Electric Bob, is the person who played it in a 5-owner league, and there was some content around it. The big thing is that it has Inti in it now, which it didn't used to have, of course, in its heyday. It has Orcish Bowmasters, and it has Detectives Phoenix. I really just wanted to brush off my Goblin lores if they were ever going to be good, because I think I paid $20 a piece for those or something back at the time that deck originally came out. And there's some fun synergies here. Being able to Burning Inquiry when you have Orcish Bowmasters out is pretty wild. You get to do 3 extra damage to your opponent and amass Orcs 3, essentially, which is pretty fun. Detectives Phoenix out of the graveyard to make your Hollow One suddenly have flying and be able to attack in as a 6/6. Flying haste is pretty interesting. All of these combos are pretty tough to set up, I found, and so I would give it a try again for fun. But I don't think it's a real thing. But it was kind of fun to see Hollow One come back, especially from a card that I don't think was on anybody's radar coming out of Modern Horizons 3 season.
The Discord around that deck in particular was discourse in our Discord was that Detectives Phoenix is a sleeper. And people are maybe underestimating its power and potential in general, maybe not necessarily in Hollow One shells. Did you get that sense that it had a lot of untapped power potential?
It wasn't a slam dunk, I guess is what I could say safely. It felt like there were plenty of times where I had 2 or 3, I had 2 Detectives Phoenix in my hand and no other threats, and I was like, cool. What am I doing with this gray ogre in Modern? You know what I mean? Like, there were moments where I was like, ugh, I don't know if this is really happening for me. But having it with Street Wraith, for example, was kind of good because then it's a way to get your Collect Evidence 6 really fast. So I get what's going on here. I just don't know if it was really, really happening. But like I said, I'd try it again. Just felt kind of awkward against a few matchups.
Yeah, I think with Phoenix specifically, you kind of need a way to more consistently discard it to the graveyard. Like you're playing Goblin Lore and Burning Inquiry, which is, they're powerful cards, but if you hit Yahtzee or you don't, then there's a big difference there. But I almost wonder, like, the combination of, like, Street Wraith with other discard outfits, like maybe Cookbook and Psychic Frog, maybe there's something there.
Yeah, I wonder a little bit if this is Teamer Battle Rage 2024, where if you're playing it with something truly giant, like you can get a big Death Shadow out or something with Psychic Frog, or you do Psychic Frog stuff only. I do kind of like that idea. I have not played around with Psychic Frog decks yet, but I'm hopeful that there is a reality in the future where they're more prevalent in Modern itself. Obviously, they're pretty powerful in Legacy, but
I don't know what it was today, but random aside, I think I played 4 leagues today, and I played against blue-black, I think, like 6 times. There's a lot of blue-black decks. So I played against
blue-black and Modern?
today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were they like shadow decks, or were they just blue-black frog decks, or what did it feel like they looked like?
I think there was one shadow deck, and then like the rest of them were all Murktide.
Yeah. Blue-black Murktide. Okay.
Merc and frogs. Like,
Yeah.
I think frog is the thing that keeps them together.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm averaging 1 per league or so. And a lot of Eldrazi decks. Like, people keep casting Thought-Knot Seers against me.
Yes. Yes.
I fully agree. Mine are more like Tron. Like, they don't quite feel Eldrazi. It feels more like the green Tron builds that are going on, where they're playing the like Myco Synth Spire or whatever that card, like the card that searches or destroys a land if you kicked it. I'm getting a little bit more of that. The other thing, we already talked about Arena of Glory, but Arena of Glory is in this Hollow One deck. I'm looking forward to people playing that more and more on value as well.
That's one that we definitely missed on, Arena of Glory.
Yeah.
I feel like we didn't talk about it that much, but oh boy.
I think that we agreed that it was probably the best of that cycle when we talked about it, but we were also kind of like, none of these are that great. I will say the Jeskai deck that I've been playing has Monumental Henge in it, and I've never activated it even once.
Oh. I even activated it once when, like, the first draft of the Boros decks played it, just to find, like, a Fable or something. It was eh.
I think we had a bit of tunnel vision on it, right? Because it's just kind of like, how many cards can be read, Michael? Like 3 1-drops? Instead of like thinking like, like all the large creatures that could also be hasted with it, that would be cool.
Right.
Yeah, and I think part of that was we just didn't realize how completely busted Flage was.
Yes.
Because people did catch on to the fact that you can give 2 creatures haste. What I think we weren't accounting for is like what those creatures were going to be. And Dave, was it you and me when I gave haste to Ragavan and Amped Raptor in 1 turn?
Yes.
And that's when we were like, we're onto something here.
Yeah. Oh, that is actually fine. That is pretty good. All right, so that's enough, just kind of like random Modern grab bag, but we didn't want to just hit you with a ton of spoilers, especially because, it's not Modern Horizons 3. We don't have to spend a whole hour talking about Bloomburrow.
Yeah, I'm tired of talking about these old Modern Horizon 3 cards when we could be talking about these brand new Bloomburrow cards instead.
Heck yeah.
Devon.
Stan.
Last week, we shared our initial personal favorite standout cards, had a friendly discussion about things happening in Bloomburrow. You weren't here for that one. We gave you the week off. You've earned it.
I appreciate it.
Maybe you can start us off, and it doesn't even have to be one card. I'm just curious, like, what's been catching your attention lately? Whether it's individual cards or stuff that people are like cooking with in the Undercity. All
right, so probably my single favorite card in the set, and maybe you could have guessed this, was the infamous Cruelclaw. I don't know. I don't remember seeing this one on your guys' show notes last week, so I don't think you guys talked about it.
We did. I threw it on at the end of the show to talk about it, but I can guarantee, Devon, that I did not bring the level of thoughtfulness that you will bring to it right now when you talk about it.
Okay. All right. So just a quick refresher. It's the red black 1/3/3 menace, legendary creature Weasel Mercenary. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, exile cards from the top until you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card by discarding a card rather than paying its mana cost. So, I'm sure you guys have probably talked about hitting Emrakul, which is cool, but I mean, how often can you really do that? I was even thinking of using this as like a discard outlet for Asmo. And Stan talked about Dave talked about the Hollow One deck that he played as like maybe you use this as a discard outlet for Asmo that triggers Inti. Maybe you can hit a Hollow One off of it. You can give it Flying with Phoenix. Now maybe that's too much mana. Maybe that's too slow. But I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with this card. And I like this one a lot.
It's $30 pre-sale.
I know. It's a lot. It is mythic, right?
So infamous. It is mythic. And it's got sweet art. I don't know what is going on with this weasel. It's got like an acid sword and there's fireworks behind it. I'm into it. Nice little robe.
Since you guys talked about that one last week, let's do one more real quick because that was we already went over that. So Sunspine Lynx, which I think is another real kind of a good banger here. So 2 red elemental cat. It is a 5/4. It says players can't gain life. Damage can't be prevented, and when it enters, it deals damage to each player equal to the number of non-basic lands that player controls. So there's a lot going on here. First of all, in Pioneer, players can't gain life, stops Amalia. Even in Modern, I think this could potentially be good enough because the damage can't be prevented means that if they play Ring, you play this, good to go. It also works really well against Tron. Like if they have 4 non-basics in play, say they play Ring where they have 4 lands, you play this. The damage can't be prevented that turn. They take 4, and it says each player, so it doesn't target them. Even if they have protection, you still just get the damage from this. So a lot of good stuff going on with this card.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing with that sequence, just to be even clearer, is if you're in a somewhat aggressive red deck, you probably have creatures on board already, right? And then they play Ring, take off turn 4 to play Ring, thinking that they're going to be able to avoid a crack. And what you do is you hit them for 4 with the ETB from this card, and then also you get to attack in with your team again. So maybe you're hitting them for 8 or 10, you know what I mean, total off of that. That's going to go real fast.
Note the red in the mana cost.
Okay. You know what that means.
Oh, Arena of Glory.
Buongiorno.
I see. All right. Well, we found the answer
an
to the
extra
ring.
5. Why not?
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, this is a great pick, Devon. I don't think we talked about it last week, but it was one that caught my eye, and I just sort of forgot about it.
It was on my list for this week as well, so I'm glad we're talking about it. I think it's really good. I mean, 4-drop is a lot for Modern, but we're playing Obsidian Charmaw sometimes now, and I know that doesn't always cost 4 either, but
I mean, people are playing the Ring,
True.
If they're going to tap out for a 4-drop and your 4-drop answers their 4-drop and sometimes even kills them on the spot, like that's probably good enough.
I love the idea of opening just a little portal for Ring to get beat, right? Like, I don't know if this is really going to be it, but I think it's possible that it could be it, and you might be seeing it coming out of the sideboards of, or even main deck occasionally in Boros energy decks, or something like that, so...
That's what I was going to say. This seems perfect for Boros because they have a Ring problem.
Yeah.
My whole issue with just thinking about any card that costs 4 is the shielded power level? Maybe it doesn't have to be, and maybe this is. Maybe this is vaguely shielded-esque because of how much it stops. Like it's stopping the life gain, anti-prevention, ETB damage.
Shane, I think that's a great point, that it needs to be shielded power level. I do think this is not that powerful, but it stops a lot, so maybe it is just shy of it.
Yeah. There's a ton of incidental life gain in Modern. Like, Shieldred has incidental life gain. Soul Spike is a life gain spell. Flage is a life gain spell. Ocelot Pride is a life gain. Like, if you have this in play, that Ocelot Pride is not making tokens.
Yeah. It's also not making tokens for you. By the way, I would like to point out really quickly, if you have Ocelot Pride and you have Sunspine Link, it's also not making tokens for your own is not also making tokens, so just keep that in mind.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think this card is very good, so we'll see. I do wonder a little bit why we're not playing Raptors if players can't gain life is that good, but I really think it's the ETB that makes the difference with this card.
I have a card, y'all, that I wanted to talk about last week, and we must have overlooked it. Osteomancer Adept.
Really helped out my arches and my shoes.
Yes. Give you the lift.
Yeah.
One of your legs is a quarter inch shorter than your other, Dave.
Yep.
So this is a 2/2 Squirrel Warlock with Death Touch. And it costs 1 in the black, by the way. You can tap it until end of turn. You may cast creature spells from your graveyard by foraging, in addition to paying their other costs. If you cast a spell this way, that creature enters with a finality counter on it. If you have forgotten what forage is, it's you exile 3 cards from your graveyard or sacrifice a food. And then finality counter just means if something would die, it gets exiled instead. So this is effectively Underworld Breach on a stick for creatures, with the added utility of also being able to sacrifice foods instead of exiling 3 cards. But it does not have haste, which effectively Underworld Breach does have because you don't need to do anything with it. And so like it ultimately to me like has like that weakness of something like Priest of Fellrights from MH2, where you can't do what you want to do with it the turn it enters. Without something like maybe Tyvar or something like that coming back from the grave of modern Pioneer experiments. But like I think this can see play in like Yogg or like other weird creature heavy decks. I think it's just it's a very cool card and a novel effect.
Yeah, when I first saw this card, the first thing that came to mind was Asmo, because you have Asmo, which wants to have Cookbook, and Cookbook is a way to make food, also discard cards, which helps you play with the Osteomancer. So maybe there's something there, but I guess I'm not quite sure, I guess in that deck, what you would be casting. Like you said, maybe it's a little bit better in Yogg, because you have natural creatures that 1-drops that go to the graveyard, and you want to cast those, but yeah, there's definitely something here. It reads relatively powerful.
The big thing for me here is that it costs 2 mana. When I think about other cards like this that potentially can do some kind of combo, you're looking at Yawgmoth and you're looking at like, my good friend Vannifar, and those both cost 4, right? And so you get there a little bit faster. Maybe it's easier to enable this creature to do something earlier. I don't know. This is not my kind of card, but it does look like a powerful card to me.
What do you all got? We got a big list this week.
It's not too long, but Stan, is there anything you're particularly interested in that you want to talk about?
Well, I did make a brief list of high school yearbook style superlatives. I'd love to share with you a card that I've categorized as the biggest sleeper that's going to end up in some dumb combo deck.
Okay.
And that's Lumra, Bellow of the Woods. 4 green for a legendary elemental bear. Vigilance Reach, Star. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. When it enters, you mill 4 cards, then return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. I think it's that last line of text, putting all the lands from your graveyard onto the battlefield tapped. Like that seems like it's could enable some kind of powerful synergy. Maybe with that black lizard that landfalls pings for 1 whenever land enters the battlefield, or something else. The thing that occurs to me is that Scapeshift is a 4 mana card, but it doesn't actually cost 4 mana. You can't cast Scapeshift on 4. So I feel like the 6 CMC here maybe is a little bit more accurate to like when you're doing your big land combo turn. Big green mythic seemed interesting to me.
If only there was a way that we could have our lands enter the battlefield untapped. Perhaps for only 1 mana.
A generic, right? A generic would be nice.
Generic, yes.
Yeah.
The G.
Yeah, I mean, how is Titan getting lands in the yard?
So I have heard, and I don't know how much how much time he's going to spend working on this, but I heard, I think it was on one of his podcast episodes, Dom Harvey was talking about this in Amulet alongside the 1/3 that I can't remember the name, Aftermath Analyst. So you kind of use that as like a package deal. I don't know what the rest of the deck looks like, but there could be something there. See, the thing is, my brain is too small to comprehend the amount of energy that would be necessary to create an Amulet Titan deck list with this card, so I just don't even bother.
I don't think Raptor synergizes with this at all, Devon. I'm not sure what you mean. The amount of energy that.
Oh, I mean, hey, if you got 6 energy, you can cast this thing.
There you go. Yeah. Just got a galvanic discharge
Good one,
for nothing,
Dave.
and then tune, and then this.
We're in.
We're in. We did it. One card I wanted to talk about in the big dumb mythics zone, since we're there right now, we haven't talked about Beza, the Bounding Spring, at all.
Okay.
I got to go to Beza one time. It was beautiful. Lots of DJ music. It's 2 generic white. For a legendary creature, Elemental Elk, it is a 4/5. It's a 4/5, friends. And it says, when Beza the Bounding Spring enters, create a treasure token if an opponent has more lands than you. 4 life if an opponent has more life than you. 2 blue 1/1 blue fish creature tokens if an opponent controls more creatures than you. And draw a card if an opponent has more cards in hand than you. This is timely reinforcements plus mana on a stick for 4 mana.
Now, Dave, you did the thing that I did, which is you put a card in the notes that we talked about last week, and I actually did that as well.
We did?
Yeah, because I was really into this card last week as well.
I don't remember talking
as
about this.
like a killer control finisher.
Okay.
Yeah, you were into it, Dave.
Wow.
And you still
Well,
are.
I still am. So let's just remind everybody.
He hasn't changed his tune.
I haven't changed my tune at all. One of the most expensive cards in the sets, and guess what? I guess I'm still into it. We can cut all this. That's fine.
We don't have to. I think this card just like wants to be in a ton of sideboards as just kind of like a get out of jail.
Yep.
For 4 mana card.
Yep. I totally agree. That's what it is. All right, can I do another card then?
Ephemerate it too.
Yeah, ephemerate me. I'm going to ephemerate so I get to take another turn here. Dourport Mage for a generic and a blue. It is a 1/3 frog wizard. I feel a little froggy right now after that last card. And it says, whenever one or more other creatures you control leave the battlefield without dying, draw a card. It has an activated ability of a generic and a blue. Tap, return another target creature you control to its owner's hand. I have no idea who this card is for, but I think it is pretty sweet, especially if you start thinking about doing things like, I don't know, Soul Herder or things where you get to have cards leave over and over again, being able to draw a card off of that. Of course, this is another target for, or a part of an ephemerate package, perhaps, that just adds onto it. And the thing is, it's not that hard to kill, or that easy to kill. It's a 1/3, so it dies to bolt, but at least it's still, something that could block a Ragavan, for example.
Mm-hmm. Whenever one or more creatures you control leave the battlefield without drawing,
You got to read it a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is. I mean, this is Aspiring Spike the card, right? I mean, it's
I
a
think
frog.
he's high on it. Speaking of,
It's a frog.
He is?
It draws cards. It's cheap enough. It has good toughness, like all those things you said, right? So I think there's some good stuff here. I like that it doesn't, like, the drawing a card is not part of its ability. It's just part of its static. So like that can happen from anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like you don't have to, like, if it was one in the blue, tap, return another target creature controller's owner's hand, draw a card, I'd be like,
That's terrible. Yeah.
yes.
Yep.
This is, the static is pretty good.
Right.
It's like as an enchantment creature type thing.
I almost wonder if it's kind of this like rule of 8 stuff that we usually talk about, where now you have this plus Satoru, and to kind of like pay you off for having a bunch of blinks that ephemerates, Soul Herder, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I guess I wouldn't be surprised that it's it doesn't really take much to combo with the evoke elementals these days. Apparently,
Can this not seem Pioneer play? Like,
how are we triggering a Pioneer?
well, that's the question that I'm asking, because like I just feel like 1/3 stat line is a really defensive toughness to kind of like actually survive a turn in Pioneer, and it makes me wonder like whether the wizard typing might be relevant there too, and if we're trying to do some like ephemerate Soul Herder stuff, which I don't know if this is the thing that takes Soul Herder to the next level, but maybe this can unlock something in Pioneer that is being overlooked.
The only card that I can really think of off the top of my head that works with this in Pioneer is Essence Flux, which is the card that some people played in like blue versions of Scam a little while ago. I know Dingo was trying it out. I don't know how many like 1-mana flicker cards there are on Pioneer. I think that's something like obviously we have Ephemerate in Modern, but I don't know if there's a ton of those. I'll have to go deep into the well and see if I can find something.
I do want to mention the art on this card reminds me of the tale of Mr. Jeremy Fisher. Y'all familiar with Mr. Jeremy Fisher? If anyone knows,
I've never heard of this in my life.
Beatrix Potter, the author who wrote Peter Rabbit, has a story about a frog who goes fishing and gets into some trouble.
It does look like it. It's very Beatrix Potter, the art direction of this set, now that you mention it, actually. I hadn't even considered it. These like anthropomorphic animals.
Yeah, I went to our hometown when I was living in England. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
In the Lake District, obviously.
Amazing. All right, who's got another card? Devon, I think it's your turn.
I got one more on my list. I can maybe come up with something after this, but Huskburster Swarm. So it's a big dumb card, not a mythic, but
Perfect.
it's 7 in black for a 6/6 menace death touch creature elemental insect. D00mwake, hey, that sounds pretty bad. Oh wait, there's more. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature card you own in exile and your graveyard. So
Yes.
I don't know if this necessarily will port over to Modern, like how much of the graveyard stuff is working on. But in Pioneer specifically, there's been an Insidious Roots deck that's kind of like creeping up and doing well in some challenges and stuff. And that deck plays a ton of creatures. And the biggest problem is, well, A, you want to exile your creatures to your other abilities to pay you off for having Insidious Roots. Therefore, you have less creatures in your graveyard for the other creature payoffs, like that pay you off for having creatures in your graveyard specifically. And what is nice about this is it counts the stuff in exile too. So it even gives you a little bit of insurance against stuff like Rest in Peace and Leyline of the Void, which is something we really haven't seen out of cards of this effect, where it's like, normally it's like, oh, they play Leyline, I have an 8-drop in my hand that I can't cast.
Yeah, I mean, it's Crackling Drake in that sense, basically.
Right.
This is a card we talked about last week as well. Stan had it on his list. The thing I mentioned with this card is that I was very high on a card in Dominaria United that had most of this text except for the exile clause, thinking that it would be pretty decent. And it turns out, in my estimation, that Tolarian Terror, which is the one that rewards you for having spells, instants and sorceries in your graveyard, is a lot easier to pay off than getting a bunch of creatures, than getting 6-7 creatures in your graveyard is. What do you think about that part of it?
I think that kind of facilitates like the whole idea that I have around this card, where you want to pair it with Insidious Roots because, you have stuff like Scrap Heap Scrounger, Agatha's Soul Cauldron, stuff that pays you off for creatures leaving the graveyard. And this having the ability, because that deck has a bunch of self-mill anyway, so it's kind of easy for that deck to fill its graveyard with creatures. So I think in that context specifically, that's where I like this card a lot.
Got it. Powerful common for sure, or uncommon. Shane, you got anything else?
Yeah, I got a few. Fountainport. It's a land. You can tap to add colorless. You can pay 2 and tap it to sacrifice a token and draw a card. You can pay 3 to tap it, pay a life, create a 1/1 blue fish creature token. You can pay 4 and tap it to create a treasure token. I think this does enough interesting things for me to put it on this list. Like, is this like an Asmo card? I don't know. I think it's a cool card. Cool land, bro.
I agree. I wonder if it's just a commander card.
Just because of like the cost of everything, or
Taps for colorless, cost of everything.
It's kind of
Or
expensive.
if it's just like kind of expensive, or it's just like a one of in control where you can afford to like do this stuff on a long enough timeline.
yeah, maybe. I see just like a lot of random utility here, but yeah, maybe all of these things just cost too much for it to be in almost any modern deck, or Pioneer for that matter.
Yeah, I feel like maybe the best ability on this is to make a 1/1, like Stan was saying, specifically for control decks in Pioneer. They play Castle Ardenvale, which I guess, you could argue maybe is better because it taps for white, but this has other utilities. So, I don't know. I could see maybe blue-white decks in Pioneer playing one copy, but I think it's a little too slow to make it into Modern.
I just keep looking at that 2-tap, sacrifice a token, draw a card thing, and I see something happening there. You know, like it both does the sacrifice and draws you more cards.
I mean, what if we just go a different direction with this, and this is a utility land, and like Rakdos Sacrifice, where it's like, oh, I have lots of food, or Asmo, and it's like I'm really only using it for that ability, and occasionally I might do the other thing if I'm really feeling like I need a treasure token for some reason. But I don't know. That seems like more of a maybe. You can sacrifice it. You know, imagine sacrificing a goat token to be able to draw a card. That seems pretty good.
Yeah, I don't like goats.
Who does?
I do like Jackdaw Savior. I mean, not really, but I just see something here. It's a 3/1 flying bird cleric for 2 and a white. And whenever it or another creature you control with flying dies, return another target creature card with lesser mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this is Scrap Trawler for flyers.
Yes.
I don't know what you do with it, but I think you do something with it.
It's cards like this that make me want to just like put non-spirit creatures in my spirits deck and just like play a disruptive blue-whites flyers deck in Pioneer, where you are still able to play like a lot of the same. You don't play the spirit mana leak. It's been so long since I played that deck.
Geist
I don't remember
Light
any of the
Snare,
card names.
right? Something like that.
Thank you. Geist Light Snare. And I feel like a lot of them have actually even cut that because they're just playing No More Lies instead.
Right.
And just like having this instead of like some of the 3-mana enchantments that it's playing, like Tashana's Welcome, for instance, to like be able to grind and get you back material in interactive games, like makes me think like maybe that's what's up. Of course, not being a spirit means you can't flash it in off Rattle Chain, so that's probably why it'll never be a spirits card, but I agree that that line of text, being able to like stay in the game even in the face of interaction, and likewise just kind of like forcing someone to interact with it first, is pretty powerful.
I mean, there is a Lord that just gives +1/+1 to things with flying, right? Like that's the Lord Empyrean Eagle or whatever. That so you could go that way instead.
But
No, you don't have to have spirits. You just have a bunch of flyers.
I mean, Stan, you may have just called out what this card actually is, which is just like a great card for the limited blue-white flyers that's in like every set. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in this set as well. But I think anytime you can, recur something for the cost of another creature you control dying, there's always potential interest there for me.
Soul Shift. Isn't that what this ability is called, Devon? Isn't this Soul Shift? From
Soul Shift
Kamigawa.
returned to hand, right? I think.
Did it?
I can't remember, but it's similar.
Yeah.
It is very similar because they're always going down in the chain.
Right.
I keep staring at this card, like trying to figure out what I can combo with it, with like a sack outlet and like a 2-drop. I don't know. I'm trying to think of something, but until I figure that something out, then it looks like a powerful card though.
I wonder if like there's something powerful if you have 2 on the board at the same time that's happening.
Well,
Where it's
now we're
like
talking.
you can almost always guarantee that there's going to be one Jackdaw around. If you can get 2 on the board at any given moment, then like you've locked in a Jackdaw game.
How though?
I don't know, David.
Okay. I was like, because they don't bring each other back.
Yeah.
But okay,
Two sets of
so one
Jackdaws,
sees the other one
so-
dying.
Right.
You bring a creature back. When Jackdaw or another creature dies, so if you have one in the yard, one in the battlefield, when it dies, you can bring the other one back.
All right. So if it's like a 4-drop dies, the first one dies, you bring back a 2-drop, then you play a 4-drop, then it dies, then you get to bring the other Jackdaw back. I see what you mean. Yeah.
And you know it costs 4 mana? I think
Beza, the card I talked about twice.
Beza,
Yeah.
Breza.
Yeah.
Evoke Subtlety, get back the second Jackdaw. Bang.
Look at that. Now we're talking.
Oh, subtlety, yeah. Subtlety flies.
It sure does.
You can pump it with Empyrean Eagle.
I don't think we're playing Empyrean Eagle in Modern these days.
God. Okay. What else we got?
Okay. Do you like squirrels
Yeah.
and food?
What if I said no?
What about squirrels as food?
Yes.
That's not what this card's. That's sort of what this is about. Vinereap Mentor. Black and a green, 3/2 for a Squirrel Druid. When it enters or dies, create a food token. That's it. So squirrel synergy, food synergy. I mean, you get 2 foods for 2 mana. Potentially in like your weird creature / token / artifact sacrifice / food sacrifice deck.
Yeah, I've definitely been trying to make some sort of Pioneer food deck viable, and I think this really does slot in kind of perfectly because that deck is missing an element of pressuring the opponent's life total early, and this does that, but like you mentioned, also is just like later in the game, you can sack at the oven, which gives you more food that way. So I could certainly see myself trying this card.
Yeah, being a 3/2 is like, it's not amazing, but we've seen somehow, Rakdos midrange play a 3/2 with a little bit of upside for far too long. I don't remember that guy's name.
Bloodtithe Harvester. It's actually kind of similar to that now that I think about it.
Yeah, it's like, it's a Bloodtithe Harvester-esque card. I think this has play in the right deck if the deck exists around it.
I think it does
too much.
I think it does too, but in Pioneer.
Yes, Pioneer, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about Pioneer.
Yeah. Can I throw another card that's food-centric out that we haven't talked about yet? Yet another cat. Can we talk about more cats?
Please.
It's the big cat.
I would never stop you from talking about cats.
Ygra, Eater of All. 3 generic, black-green for a 6/6 that has legendary creature elemental cat, ward, sacrifice a food. Difficult little condition there, potentially. Other creatures are food artifacts in addition to their other types and have 2 generic, tap, blah, blah, blah. I don't have to read what food is. Whenever a food is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Ygra, Eater of All. You can't kill this thing with damage-based removal. It's tough to kill this in a control deck because it's got the Vein Ripper problem. Seems like a reasonable card. It also goes infinite with 2. Doesn't it go infinite with 2 Cauldron Familiars? You just give a ward over and over again. Yeah, it goes infinite with a lot of stuff.
There's like a million
right?
different.
Okay.
There's a million things this combos with. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is maybe a combo piece. Maybe it's also just a good sized beater for certain decks, depending on what they want to do. But it's an interesting card with a lot of text.
I don't hate it. I mean, it is a little expensive. I definitely eyed this up as a card that, like you said, combos with Cauldron Familiar. I was thinking about it in this kind of like theoretical food shell and Pioneer, because I don't think it's quite good enough for Modern.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could certainly see it being at like the top of the curve in that food deck, because that has like Gilded Goose and other ways to generate fast mana or get some additional mana ramp, so you can kind of curve into that with the Cauldron Familiars and whatnot.
Devon, wasn't there a black-green food type creature from the set before MH3 that we were talking about that also might go
Outlaws?
What's that?
Outlaws of Thunder Junction?
Well, I mean, that's probably the set, but I don't remember what the card was. I think we had something that was like, hey, this can go into my black-green sack style deck.
Was it not Greta in Wilds?
I don't know why I brought that up, because and we don't have the answer at the tip of our tongue. But I guess what I'm saying is I think there's been a slow feed of cards like this, and I'm curious if we finally get to, because the set has so much sacrifice synergy and food synergy things going on, I think we can there's definitely some pieces to add to that puzzle.
Oh, no, the card you're talking about was the Farmer, the 4-mana 5/5, the Bristlebud Farmer, which was from Thunder Junction.
Okay.
Yeah, that card has a lot of stats for 4 mana. So yeah, like you said, all these pieces coming together. I would not be surprised if I tried some food decks. They weren't very good last time around, but
They didn't have a big cat.
David, it wasn't until you said that you can't kill this with damage-based removal that it really clicked for me how actually difficult it is to answer this thing. You need a Wrath, or you need to edict it somehow, or damage isn't going to do it. You need Leyline Binding and a piece of material that you're willing to sacrifice.
And it has to be a creature. The decks that play Leyline Binding and Pioneer, they don't have a lot of creatures, generally.
well, oh yeah, so yeah, any creature basically.
Right.
But yeah, it's basically just Vein Ripper. essentially, that text.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still pretty good. Vein-Ripper's, that text is very relevant on Vein-Ripper.
It is. And this costs 2 mana
What also
less.
does it for me, now that I'm 1 mana less,
Is
now
it
that
one?
I'm realizing it, it's a 6/6, which means even it doesn't die to Lightning Axe. So that's pretty relevant.
Yeah. I mean, Mega doesn't die to Lightning Axe because it'll be an 8/8 by the time you can target it. If you sacrifice Trigger Ward, you get +2/+2, and then you get to target it.
Oh, I did not realize it counted their stuff too. Oh, this card's a lot better than I thought it was.
This card is nuts.
Ooh, I thought it was only your stuff. Okay, well, we're learning things today, boys.
Yeah. It's a good cat.
That's
very good cat.
I've got a good bat, or a potentially good bat. Like, people are actually talking about this card as maybe being like something to put in like Mardu energy, and I'm like, okay. That's the Darkstar Auger. Say that 3 times fast. The Rural Juror. It's a 2 and a black for a 2/3 flying bat warlock with Offspring Bee. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to its mana value. So yes, can I interest you in 2 bobs for the cost of 2 bobs, but on 1 card?
2 bobs, 1 bat.
Yes. 2 bobs for the cost of 2 bobs. That's a lot of bobs, baby.
So many bobs.
I looked at this card long and hard.
And
I don't know what to make of it. It's just one of those things of like, I am prepared for us to discover that the thing that makes Bob better is by making it a little bit more expensive with evasion and coming in with a copy of itself. That's what it needed all along. Or it'll not make the cut because
it kills you instantly.
OG Bob had to pay the price.
I think this is maybe good enough for standard, where their standard like has the black aggressive core. I think that both of the black 1-drops are not rotating. And so there's like some black aggressive stuff that's going on here with like Caustic Bronco and Shieldred still that. But like even with Shieldred, if you kick this thing and reveal 2 Shieldreds the next turn, you're just gonna die. So you have to be a little careful.
I'm not a fan of this card.
It seems like a lot of risk. Just a lot of risk.
On first read, I was kind of like, yeah, this is interesting, maybe, But the more I thought about it, I'm just like, yeah, you literally you die when you cast this for 4 mana. Like you're not getting another turn. Well, you're getting an upkeep, but then you die.
Yeah, I think it's a surprising number of people have just like brought it up in like, different avenues of conversation, and I'm like, am I missing something? Am I missing why 2 bobs would be good? When you're just going to draw, like you could draw like, 5 to 6 mana of stuff in the next turn and just be dead. I don't know. Fly close to the sun. Maybe you touch it.
Can I share another cheeky superlative with you?
Please.
So this card I've titled the most likely to create huge blowouts when people and players realize that the effects stack, and that's Stormsplitter. 3R for an Otter Wizard with haste. It's a 1/4. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, create a token that's a copy of Stormsplitter. Exile that token at the beginning of the next end step.
Stan,
Dave?
do you know how many spells it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll? No, to get to 20 damage.
Probably like 5 or 6.
You're exactly right. It's 5 or 6.
It's going to be very little. And the thing is that it costs 4 to actually cast this. So like it has to survive a turn, and then maybe you can just like do 5 cantrips or something. Or maybe you find a way to plot a bunch of cards and you have them waiting in the wings. You cast Stormsplitter, cash in on all your plotted cards. Bada bing, bada boom. Because it was when I realized that the token also has that line of text, made me realize like when you have 2 copies out and you cast an instant or sorcery, you make 2 more copies, and it's exponential. I paid attention to that day in math class.
Yeah, seems cool.
I really wanted to put this card on my list too, but I was kind of like, this is too loose for even me in some ways, but I do think it's very cool. And I feel like it would be very sweet for some people in Commander to do something weird with this card, for sure. But I don't know if this is going to get there. I mean, the funny thing is, like, the only way to make this work is with free spells in one form or another, right? Free instants or sorceries, and so we're talking about Modern to do that. But I think that this just dies immediately in Modern, although it is a 1/4. It is a 1/4, so who knows where we're at with that. So, but this card is very cool. It's going to make some great screenshots.
If you get to trigger it, then you get, even if they have a removal spell for the first one, then you still get the copy.
Right.
So then you can maybe go from there. It's like you can kind of keep the chain going.
Yeah.
Could be something. I got one.
Okay.
Let's do it.
I don't know if you guys talked about this one last week, but I didn't actually write this one down, but I'm just going to... This is the Valley Mightcaller. This is the new Champion of the Parish type card, where green for a 1/1 trample, whenever another frog, rabbit, raccoon, or squirrel you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on Valley Mightcaller. Nothing too crazy, but I just want to make sure that you are aware that Frogmite, Frogmere Enforcer, and Halo Hopper are all frogs. So do with that information what you will. I'm just saying. Green Affinity, Green-Red Affinity, let's go.
They're frogs that are also free frogs.
Yes,
right? Like
they are all free frogs.
Yes, that's the thing to note, is that you can go wild.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Maybe it's a good content creator deck, but...
I have a green card. I think people are... I don't know if we're sleeping on it or if it's not that good. It's Keen-Eyed Curator, green, Raccoon Scout 3/3. As long as there are 4 or more card types among cards exiled with Keen-Eyed Curator, it gets +4/+4 and has trample. You can pay 1 and exile 1, not green, and exile target card from a graveyard. So this is like Scooz-esque and Unlicensed Hearst-esque, but neither. So this doesn't gain life, which is like always an interesting bonus from Scavenging Ooze, but doesn't require more green mana to activate its ability, which can be a squeeze when you're playing like Scavenging Ooze and you only have like a few pieces of green mana. You can cord for it, unlike Unlicensed Hearse. I don't think this is like not a lights out card by any means, but I think it's like a pretty good card, especially with the stat line being 3/3 out of the gate, although Scavenging Ooze can get there pretty quickly too. So I don't know.
No, I think this is a very good piece of graveyard hate for Pioneer. And I think that, if you're green, you might give this a shot over on Licensed Hearse if you were considering playing Hearse. I think it's one of those cards that's like, you really like it against maybe Phoenix because you can maybe get your card big enough to not die to damage-based removal. And you can also tactically choose which cards to get rid of. And if you get to play it on a later turn, maybe you get rid of multiple Phoenixes in a single turn and it just goes. But maybe even as many as 3.
Yeah, the thing to me, though, that like just gives me a little bit of trepidation about it, like over Scavenging Ooze, is Scooz is 1 into green, right? And if it exiles 4 or more cards among cards exiled with it, it's already, +4/+4, right? I mean, if they were creatures, I suppose.
Yeah, it's different stuff. Like this doesn't make it just be creatures, right?
Yeah, so there's pros and cons here for sure.
I think it's a good card.
Yeah, I almost wonder with this card, like, you don't really have to build super much around it, where to the point where, like, if you have a couple of extra types, like a bauble, or I don't know if this would see play in Modern, but like some random enchantment or artifact, and like just kind of hope that, if in an average game they're going to give you at least 2 or 3 of those types. I don't know. I could see it being good. I think it's like probably a slam dunk for Standard, maybe good enough for Pioneer.
Can I digress? Devon, do you like post-rotation small standards?
I used to. I don't really know. It's been a while since I've like really focused and honed in on a standard format, so it's tough to say. The problem that I have, and maybe this is more of a tangent than anything, it's like there's not really any standard tournaments to care for.
Yeah.
Like there used to be PTQ season and all this stuff, and now it's like, I don't know. Like it's hard for me to justify spending a lot of my time and effort onto standard specifically, unless I'm preparing for an RC or something.
I mean, you were pretty into Prof's eidetic memory about 2 months ago, if I remember properly.
That was the RCQ season.
Yeah. There you go.
The reason I asked the question and opened the door is because standards are long now. Like we still rotate every year, but the formats, the cards last a while, and I think this is the first rotation since they've made long standards, which makes me kind of like look at these cards with a little bit more keen-eyed interest, a little more keen-eyed curation. Because maybe we can potentially play with them for...
though? Shield Rid's still legal and standard for another year somehow. Don't ask me how, but...
It seems like it's been...
That's wild.
Literally a presidential administration that Shield Rid has been around. And maybe it has been.
I know.
4 or 5
Maybe
years.
even a second one. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thundertrap Trainer. This is the last card we have on our list that hasn't been crossed off yet. What do we think about Auger of Bolas? So this is the one that's a generic in a blue for an Otter Wizard with Offspring 4. It's a 1/2, and it says when this creature enters, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This card is impossible to play in Modern, but I do kind of love the ability to have a bit of a wizard payoff that can be cheap on the front end if you want it. Get you cards other than your instants and sorceries if you happen to be playing some artifacts or enchantments or something like that, and also that later on you can turn it into a draw 2, make 2 bodies. I think it's a pretty cool card. I don't know. Like Devon said a moment ago about Keen-Eyed Curator, seems like a slam dunk for standard. I don't know about more powerful formats, but this is a pretty cool callback I didn't expect to see in the set.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like the curve out is concerned, like this on turn 2, hit Flame of Nor, then cast Flame on turn 3, you get a wizard body for it. I think you bring up a very good point that finding Mishra's Bauble, like if you were to play this in a modern Wizards deck, finding Bauble is huge because you already want to play Tamiyo. Tamiyo works very well with Bauble, and you want to play Bauble. This finding Bauble can help you flip Tamiyo. So there's definitely I don't know. It's if there's any sort of like blue-red wizard style deck, I'm sure this is probably a good upgrade for those decks.
Yeah, but not a slam dunk. All right, everyone, what do you want to pick one favorite card from here, or do we want to do that or no?
Favorite card.
We all have these picks to click lists down here that Shane likes to try to get to a superlative. We all said we were just going to do superlatives, and then we talked about 15 cards, random cards again.
It was perfect. I mean, these are all good cards.
Yeah.
I mean, I can probably hack together a top 5.
Okay.
Okay.
Stan, go first if you want.
Yeah, Stan, do it.
In no particular order. I really like Mockingbird. The more I read this card, I know we talked about it last week. I spent some more time looking at it since then. Like, I think it could do something really cool in like blue Urza decks or blue Karnstruck decks. I'm just kind of curious, like if it's actually priced to move at being 1x.
Okay.
I like Beza, the Bounding Spring. We've talked about it 2 episodes in a row now. Still good.
You want to do one more, Stan?
Sure. Yeah, and then my last one we talked about a few minutes ago. It's Stormsplitter, just because it's silly and wacky and fun, and I think if you can do the thing, it'll feel exciting and satisfying. Maybe you can't do the thing in like one of our competitive constructed formats, but dare to dream.
I love it. Dream big. I got a few. I'm still pretty into Rottenmouth Viper, the snake that has the Cruxa ability that gets bigger over time, and you can cheat on its mana cost by sacrificing permanents. I think that card is pretty cool. Curious to see where that goes. For more of a Pioneer power level, I'm very into Emberheart Challenger, of course. It's not, as we've said many times, or we said last time, it's not as good as Slickshot Show Off, but the fact that you can draw a card off of it or get it's another way to get more cards into your whole flow, I think is really good. I also am kind of intrigued by Heartfire Hero, which is the one that gets bigger with counters, and then if it dies, you get to do damage to a target. I think that card is pretty good and could be, whether it goes in a Cacophony Scamp deck so that you have 8 payoffs for that kind of idea, or it goes in its own thing on its own. I think that is a cool way to go. And then it's a lot of red cards for me. Artist Talent, which is the one that lets you do a reduction in spell cost in a CMC of things, I believe. I have to look at it one more time. That's a saga that I liked. And Might of the Meek is the pump spell.
Yeah, Might of the Meek is on my list. I think it's a very cool sort of like crash through type variant.
Yeah, just to be clear, Artist Talent, it lets you loot whenever you cast a non-creature spell, or at least rummage when you do that. And then level 2 is non-creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. And then it does the Torbrand effect basically on level 3, where if a sort you control will deal non-combat damage, it deals that much +2.
I like Iridescent Vine Lasher just for the landfall pings, especially with the Offspring option. I think that, I don't know if you can really make this into a kill condition, but maybe it's just enough of like a ping that's just contributing towards your overall game plan. That's just like annoying enough. Like a mill deck with the crabs, they're doing just enough with their landfall trigger where I think this can contribute towards a larger game plan. I think Kitsa Otterball Elite is just a really versatile 2-drop wizard in the type of decks that want it, like prowess, looting, vigilance, decent toughness, can copy spells. I think there's just a lot there in a 2-drop. Stormcatch Mentor is mostly a strictly better Goblin Electromancer. Not exactly, but I think this can potentially see play if like Is It Storm stuff ever exists again. And these are all for modern, I think, modern-esque, potentially Pioneer. I think Into the Floodmaw is just cheap enough to see play in the type of decks that want it. Like, remove that problem, non-land permanent, give them a tapped fish for a single blue mana and win at instant speed. I think it's just a really flexible and very cheap card. Dewdrop Cure. That's that 2 and a white sort of return to the ranks-esque card. And if you gift, that you can get up to 3 cards back with it, which is like really powerful for creature combo synergy decks. You can you could literally piece together the combo out of that way. You could do, not that this is going to be good, but you could do like a Stitcher's Supplier, like self mill type thing, and then just get your combo back with Dewdrop Cure. Do you know what I mean? That's living the dream. That's probably not a great deck, but that's like a fun deck. And there's probably lots of other sort of ways to just use that. Sideboard against removal decks, against wrath decks, that kind of stuff.
Cool. Well, I got a couple here. So as we talked about earlier, I'm going to mention it again, but the Valley Mightcaller, I don't know if that's necessarily this Frogmite, Frogmere Enforcer, Halo Hopper stuff. I don't know how much weight there is going to be and what there's there, but I think that card is phenomenal in Standard for sure. It's just we've never seen a Champion of the Perished with Trample. If any of those creature types are at all playable, this card will be really, really sick. I like Feed the Cycle, which is a card that I haven't heard a lot of people talking about. This is the removal spell, so it's 1 in a black, destroy a creature or planeswalker, and then additional cost, you can forage or pay a black. So with if there's a food deck that generates, like Gilded Goose, Cat Oven, that kind of stuff that just generates food pretty easily. It's just 2 mana, sack of food, just kill anything, instant speed. So it seems like it's kind of priced to move. Season Warren Guard is one that I kind of like for Pioneer. This is the 1 mana 1/2, and then at the beginning of combat, I believe if you have a token, I believe it gets +2. Let me just read it real quick. Season. Let me get the exact text. I know it's very, very close to that. Yeah, so 1 mana 1/2, when it attacks while you control a token, gets +2/+0. So that pairs very nicely with Thraben Inspector and Novice Inspector. So kind of this 8-pack of things. Plus you have the Warren Guard plus Toolcraft Exemplar. So now you kind of have 8 of each. So you have a lot of redundancy with those kind of fast starts. And then the last card I want to mention is Scrap Shooter, which is nothing too crazy, but just a very, very good sideboard card for Mono Green, because I believe this is the first card. And I think I saw Bobby Fortinelli tweet about this. This is the first card that costs less than 4 mana and has 4 power and unconditionally destroys an artifact or enchantment. So, yeah, stuff to keep in mind.
Sweet. I think this set is pretty cool. I like a lot of what they're... because it's a sort of type strategy. 1, I think the limited is going to just be sort of fun, I hope. And then 2, I think... it leads to very clear archetype definitions. And when those archetype definitions play into existing or sort of, emerging strategies or potential strategies in Pioneer or Modern, then they have a pretty good home, right? And what they're doing with like these, the two color combinations, there's just a lot of good strategies that I think people are just going to want to play, whether it's limited or constructed. So I think there's some potential here. It's not like blowing the doors open, but I think there's some good stuff.
Can't wait. Hope it's fun. Love critters.
And we will find out.
Well, we did it, friends. We talked about another set of Magic cards. I'm sure we'll have another new set to talk about in 2 weeks' time. But until then, let's wrap up this week's show. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to our podcast so you get the latest episodes as soon as they come out. And if you use Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave us a rating and review. If you'd like to submit a question to our podcast or just reach out in general, you can tweet us at The Dive Down or email thedivedown@gmail.com. You can support our podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/thedivedown. You can support Devon's streaming career over at twitch.tv/DoomWake. Head over to heavyplay.com to get some incredible deck and dice boxes and playmats featuring the Equip Mag system. Use promo code TheDiveDown2024 to get 10% off your first order at heavyplay.com. Shout out to Mana Traders for sponsoring the Dive Down. If you sign up for Mana Traders using promo code TheDiveDown_8LU, you'll get 10% off your first 2 months of renting Magic Online cards and save some money on paper cards from our friends at Nerd Rage Gaming with promo code DIVE8 for 8% off your order at NRG. As always, special thanks to the bands Nowhere and Spaceblood for letting us use their music. And until next week, get out there and get into the flood maw! You're probably still taller than Joe Rogan.
I mean, mentally.
That will be cut.